one of the most exhausting games that human beings engage in, when we're steeped in an ethic of competition rather than compassion, is what I call the oppression Olympics. You're not oppressed, I'm oppressed. You think your people had it bad? Let me tell you about my people. There is enough distress to go around. There is enough pain. There is so much interpersonal distress right now. I'm exhausted by rage. At the highest level of national leadership, we have a president insulting the mayor of a city that was devastated by a hurricane, whose people, our people, fellow Americans, are right now, as we speak, as we sit here, in a hot, fetid dark, with no power, no food, no water, worried for their lives, in desperate need of basic necessities, and now very much in danger of a cholera infection and epidemic. We are being trained and tutored, dearly beloved. We are being trained and tutored in callousness, and we must resist it. We cannot lose our capacity for moral outrage, no matter how tiring and daily a grind it seems to be, because there is the essence of our humanity and we can't lose it. But do you see right now why religious life, which however awkwardly and imperfectly done, focuses on the sacred bonds of relationship, which lifts up the covenantal bond between human beings and the holy, between human beings and each other, between human beings and the rest of creation. Do you see how this is so urgently needed right now? To practice this, to name it and affirm it as real, to say yes, relationship, connection, covenant, sacred promise is at the heart of reality. We're pushing back against an epidemic of contempt that threatens humanity and the planet just as surely as any nuclear warheads ever can. An epidemic of contempt. Don't be fooled by accusations that all sides are lacking in respect for each other. You know what? I'm tired of hearing it. That's a strategic and intentional distraction. I can't even. It's a distraction, it's an obfuscation intended to cloud real issues of justice that require all of us, and especially those in power, to give up and share more power. And acknowledge harms done, if not by them personally, but by others whose heirs they are. Within this epidemic of contempt, you will see an allergy to apology. You know what happened to the Reverend Robert Lee? Robert Wright Lee IV. When he began publicly denouncing his great-great-great-great-uncle, Confederate Army General Robert E. Lee, just a few weeks ago at the very height of the controversy around Confederate monuments, bringing them down. Rob has been speaking about this for a long time, but he went on the MTV VMA Awards, Music Awards, so obviously a big media moment. And he called his great uncle an idol of racism and hatred, and he said, as his heir, it is my duty to say, stop looking to my uncle, great-great-great-great-uncle, as an idol and a hero. He was out of a job soon thereafter. But, you know, Rob is a United Church of Christ pastor. The UCC is, next to the UUs, the most liberal mainline denomination in America. And his own congregation didn't wholeheartedly support him, and there were murmurings, and there was anxiety. Oh my God, media attention, and we're not comfortable, and Rob was out. Rob himself has nothing to do with what his great uncle times 4 did. He's a cool liberal guy. But he's wise enough to understand how far-reaching his ancestors' influence has been, and he understands himself to be in a unique position to speak to it, to use his privilege not to distance himself from what is ugly and uncomfortable in his ancestral past, but to say, hey, you know what, if I can redeem this in any way, let me try. Hashivenu Adonai, return us, O God, purify our hearts. Make us to know how much dignity and joy there is in that act of returning, how much courage it takes, but how worth the effort and the risk. The Jewish Yom Kippur spiritual practice of tshuva is an inspiration and an invitation offered by the most ancient of the major world religions to interrupt the quest forward, the quest for greatness, superiority, domination, improvement, and progress. To interrupt that and go back over actions, thoughts, relationships that we have had throughout the year and reflect on them. Investigate them for brokenness, sin. I said sin. And our own fault in those things. Remember that the goal of life is not to have fun and be comfortable, but to become more deeply human, to live into the fullness of the miracle of each one of us. Remember that we are beings of soul, of conscience and connectedness, and that our aim is not endless fun and progress, but to live so that when one cries, the other shall taste salt. Every single one of us who were born and raised in this culture and this country, unless we've had very powerful formative influence from other cultures, have all been nurtured in a society whose founding fantasy is constant progress, westward ho. Moving right along. Capture the territories, plant the flag, march over the dead bodies along the way. Who cares? We're moving on. We're making ground. Every movement of the team forward across the playing field is cheered. There is a reason that football, with its phalanxes of armored warriors engaged in smash-ups, while each team tries to move the ball in a linear, indomitable progress across a line, is so much more cherished in this nation than baseball, with its little stick, its little ball, and guys running a great curvature back to home base, which is where they started, with a little stick in their hand. Circle back to home plate, no armor needed. We need to ask ourselves what greatness any civilization can achieve that has nothing built into its deepest founding structures of moral review, honest accounting of how much its obsession with progress costs. I think we are finding out at this time in our history the very, very high cost of not having those structures in place. What are any of us, nation or individual, if we cannot stop, reflect, and retrace our steps to redeem what must be recovered, held to the light and truth, of truth and redeemed? Return, review, go back, circle back, not just to rehearse grievances and to replay scenes of humiliation and failure in our heads or together, but to mull over, how did that go wrong? How did I harm anyone when it did go wrong? Am I responsible, or are we responsible for the awkwardness of that encounter? Am I the one who blew everything up in that relationship? Was it me? But to be able to ask, was it me, in a way that's free and curious and not self-hating or terrified. We could do it in that spirit. It's a great spiritual accomplishment. The point of the practice of tshuva is not self-blame or guilt or wallowing, but responsibility, accountability, the restoration of integrity and dignity, which feels amazing. There is nothing evil about making a mistake. It is the most human thing in the world to hurt others, to hurt another. Parents know this. We almost never intend to harm. But we walk around, we live in our separate little spaceships, each with their own perception, neurological makeup, learning styles, emotional intelligence levels, social skills, our own cultural context, our upbringing, our own individual little neuroses, worldviews, gender, race, sexual, ethnic, class, and religious identities. So what else can possibly happen? We hurt each other. We are not swan boats, but bumper cars. Human dignity is made or unmade in the way we take responsibility for the ways that we hurt each other. But what do we often hear when someone says, "You hurt me"? You hear, "Get over it." I didn't mean to. Oh, you're so sensitive, you don't feel that way. That wasn't me who hurt you, that was someone else who hurt you, and you're taking it out on me. Snowflake. Every single one of those responses is at least a little bit emotionally violent and abusive. Every single one of them is lacking in compassion, courtesy, and emotional generosity. So is this response. "Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are you happy now?" False apologies. Or, "I've been hurt too, you'll survive." Or, "I've been hurt too, but I didn't complain about it." More emotional violence. Taught and learned generation unto generation. The brokenness and violence we are seeing playing out in our society's most passionate conflicts right now are based in a cultural war about valuing compassion and connectedness over competition and dominance. I've been showing spiral images all morning to remind us how the journey into the center leads back out to the perimeter. We circle back not to get trapped in a past that is over and done, but to stand in the heart of truth that is the center of all things and all creation, to stand in the center of the great holiness, the great heart of holiness that we sometimes call God. Dwelling there where all are safe, if all are honest, we gather wisdom to take back out with us, rebirthing again and again in grace. You don't have to be quiet, baby. Hi. It's your path, honey bunch. The poet has said that to err is human, to forgive divine. To ask for forgiveness, to know ourselves responsible and accountable when we are and how much we are, is also divine.